Noise Radio. Powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. All Noise Radio is an internet radio station that's fully produced by graduates of the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. From modern rock to old school hip hop, country to classical, news, talk, sports, and more. It's the noise you can't ignore. Log on to allnoiseradio.com. Fire up the station. Find out more about your favorite jocks. Get the latest CSB news and more. Plus, you can take All Noise Radio with you on the go for free. Just download the Live 365 app to your iPhone, iPod Touch, or BlackBerry and search All Noise Radio. Check out tomorrow's broadcasters today at allnoiseradio.com. Powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Sit back down and shut your trap. It's time for
Keeping It Sports with M3, right here on All Noise Radio.
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Well, I'll need some beer.
Are you ready?
You have to ask me nicely.
Come on now, don't be bashful.
Are you ready? Are you ready for
Place for the best sports talk and news surrounding each league.
I can prove it with my usual flawless logic.
Hey man, this time I'm gonna do it my way.
What's your name again?
And now, here's your host, M3, Mike Rosansky. Coming to you from Cherry Hill, New Jersey. It's time for Keeping It Sports with M3, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everything's going well for you here on this Monday, the 25th day of November. And allow me to be the first amongst many that you're going to hear say it this week, and wish you all a very happy, safe, and joyful Thanksgiving with your family, friends, and any other loved ones in your life. Thanksgiving, always the beginning of one of the, best parts of the calendar. Thanksgiving, in a way, it's a less stressful holiday than Christmas. Unless you're hosting the dinner and making everything, because you don't have to go out there and buy gifts. You don't have to do all that. We have the next 4 weeks to go nuts, go crazy about that. But now we're at a good time in the calendar right now. We're late into the NFL season, a time where this is right now where the big boys come to play. This is where you stop all the shenanigans, stop all of the playing around. This is where the cream rises to the crop, and you find out, all right, who's the top dogs in the leagues, who's for real, and who is just a pretender, who is just kind of somewhat faking contention. And that's kind of what I wanted to get started with this week, because after the result of yesterday's game, we still got one more game to go here, week 12, and feels like the season has flown by very quickly. I was going through the records. I was going through all of this, looking at the standings, looking at upcoming opponents and whatnot, and trying to separate those who are for real and those who are for not. And when I say for real, I'm not talking about just for real as far as making the playoffs, because right now you look and you have in the NFC, it looks like you could have a team possibly with 10 wins not make the postseason, whereas in the AFC, you could have a wild card team come in at 8-8 with how bunched up it is with all the 6-5 and 5-6 teams that are remaining for that sixth and final spot. I'm also talking about who's for real when it comes to contendership for the Super Bowl. Because, the first goal for everybody is make the postseason, win your division, and hopefully get a home playoff game. But you want to get to the big dance. You want to get to that moment on the first Sunday in February, first February, please. First misspeak of the show. We can have a drinking game later on this with all of those that will be during the podcast. But to get to that first Sunday in February and win the championship, that is the main goal. So we're looking at, all right, who's for real and who's for not. And on the AFC side of things, I came across three teams I look at for real. You got the Baltimore Ravens, who play later tonight on Monday Night Football out in Los Angeles against the Rams. Then there's the New England Patriots, who played in as worse conditions as you can imagine last night. I mean, it rained bad here in the tri-state area, but it was just a non-stop pouring last night in Foxborough. Leading to no surprise that this was such a low-scoring game between the Pats and the Cowboys. And I would, as you would expect, there would be drops on the Patriots side. I think, there were 6 incompletions on Brady's stat line that really shouldn't count because he hit the guy in the hands and they just dropped them. Dak, you could see, was struggling throughout most of the game with it, dealing with that weather, whether he had the gloves on or not. The Cowboys were on the wrong end of a bad call, an awful call. I mean, how they called tripping on Travis Frederick on that third down late in the game, I'll never quite understand. But, hey, the Patriots, they got a call to go their way. They continue what's been a remarkable season for them when you consider the offense has not been truly elite, has not been up to par for what we expect from the Patriots. And I don't know whether it's the injuries they've had in and out of the lineup with Keon Neal, the first round pick that they had, or Neil Harry, Keon Neal. Neil Harry, the first-round pick that has missed time with injuries, whether it was the fact that they only had Antonio Brown play one game for them before they got rid of him. Mohamed Sanu has not done much. Has it been the retirement of Rob Gronkowski? I'm not exactly sure, but the Patriots have got to thank their lucky stars. They have what looks like on paper one of the best defenses of all time carrying the way for them here. And I look amongst the rest of these AFC playoff teams, playoff contenders. I really can't make out what to think of the Houston Texans, because you can have 1 week where they look so bad, get blown out by the Baltimore Ravens, and then they rebound 4 days later at home against the Colts. So which team are they? Are they the team that got run all over by the Ravens, or are they the team taking care of business at home against the division rival and also getting a lucky break by the referees not checking on the Deshaun Watson fumble in the final minute of the game? I included the Kansas City Chiefs as far as, title contenders because, hey, if Patrick Mahomes is healthy, you can never rule them out. That is an explosive offense with all the different weapons he has there. Their main problem is at the line of scrimmage. They can't run the ball and they can't stop the run either. They're bottom 10 in the league in both of these categories. And that could be the one thing that prevents them from getting to the Super Bowl. But who knows? Last year, I've seen this before, where 1 year a team has an easy ride. One team, just goes beyond expectations, gets to the conference title game and falls short as they did. And then the next year, when they're kind of back in the pack, they surprise everybody and come up and go all the way, win the championship. And you think back to Peyton Manning's first year with the Denver Broncos, everything seemed so easy that everyone thought, oh, they're a clear lock to get to the Super Bowl. They lost the home playoff game to the Baltimore Ravens. They come back a year or two later, and they win a Super Bowl in a year where Peyton Manning was essentially along for the ride. So we've seen crazy things happen like that. But outside of these first four division leading teams right now, who in the AFC do you really trust? Who in the AFC do you think could surprise anyone and make some noise? And who out of these teams do you look at and say, oh yeah, they are a lock to even make the playoffs at this point? You got the Bills, who sit in the 5 spot right now at 8-3, better, 2 games better than anyone else competing for a wild card spot. And they had another big win at home yesterday. But they haven't really beaten anyone impressively. You look at their resume. I mean, they lost a close game at home to the Patriots, and got smoked by the Eagles. And that they've got a tough schedule coming down the stretch, and starting this Thursday against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. I mean, there's no sure thing that they're even making the playoffs, and that they're doing a lot of this with a dominant defense and running all over people on the ground. I mean, that the few games that they've lost this year have been when they're not able to run the ball, because while Josh Allen has been good recently, 2 or more touchdowns in 5 of his last 7 games, I don't know if he's at that level yet where we trust him and say that he's a given. There's still flaws in his game, especially when it comes to accuracy and how quick he gets the football out. You look at the teams behind them when it comes to the wild card run, and I'm sure you can make a case for any one of these teams making the playoffs, but at the same time you can make a case for any one of them not making the playoffs. The Steelers currently sit in the 6th spot, but they play the Browns this week. They got 3 more road games, including a Week 17 matchup against the Baltimore Ravens. Who's going to be playing quarterback for them going down the stretch? I mean, they benched Mason Rudolph yesterday for Delvin Hodges, and he had the 179-yard touchdown pass to James Washington, but outside of that, didn't do much impressive. They got by because they were playing the winless Bengals. I mean, you got the Raiders, the Colts, the Titans, even the Browns, who are 5-6. We can't count them out because 2 of their last final 5 games are against the Bengals, and they've got a matchup with the Steelers coming up this Sunday, and that they're going to be wanting some kind of retaliation, some kind of form of payback if Mason Rudolph's put back out there at quarterback after the incidents that occurred a week and a half ago. But I don't know who out of the AFC playoff picture to really trust. The Colts, they're dealing with injuries now at running back, Marlon Mack. That they had injuries with Brissett earlier this year with the knee, and Brian Hoyer coming in to play. T.Y. Hilton was on a pitch count on Thursday night. So, even though I'm impressed by the fact that they've been able to rebound off the retirement of Andrew Luck, I don't look at them and say that that they are someone I'm confident could go and either make the playoffs and win a playoff game if they get in. They're in a weird division right now, because that division, the the Texans, I keep waiting for them to take off, but as I said, they go from 1 week and Deshaun Watson looking like the MVP to the next week getting smoked by the Ravens and finishing the week up by having a home victory over the Colts. So they've been up and down all year. The team that everyone's forgetting in all of this is the Tennessee Titans, who just yesterday beat the Jaguars, smoked the Jaguars, in fact. They've gone 4-2 since putting Tannehill in there at quarterback and have one of the more underrated running backs in the league in Derrick Henry. I mean, no one talks about this guy when we talk about the elite running backs, the top of the league guys. We're always so focused on, the guys like Saquon Barkley or Nick Chubb on the big market teams or teams full of high profile stars, that we're forgetting about this guy who just year after year continues to churn out good seasons for the Titans. And you look at their schedule, they got 2 games left against the Texans. So not only could they still make the playoffs, they could still win that division. So it's kind of a wide open landscape right now when it comes to the AFC wild card. But it's a wide open landscape that's filled with pretenders. The only true contenders, and when I say contenders here, I'm talking about teams that can win a Super Bowl. The only true contenders here are the Patriots, Ravens, and Chiefs. That's it. You have the Texans, who maybe are a question mark if Deshaun Watson gets hot, but outside that, you got a whole bunch of teams that can make the playoffs but aren't truly championship teams. Whereas in the NFC, you got about 6 teams that you can make the argument for them going to the Super Bowl. The 49ers, after another impressive win against the Packers last night. Even as bad as Rodgers was last night, as lackluster as that offense was for the Packers, I can't discount them. I can't disinclude them just yet. It seems like they have some allergic reaction to go into the state of California, because this is twice in a month now that they've gotten their doors blown off by one of these California teams. But you still got to include them in the mix. The Saints, they held on by the hair on their chinny chin yesterday, getting ever so lucky in beating the Panthers. I mean, the Panthers had this all set up to come back in this game. It felt like all game long, every time the Saints took a 2-touchdown lead, their defense was saying right away to Allen and company, all right, come on back, you get right back in this game. They had 2-score leads 2 or 3 times in this game, but seemingly every time Allen and McCaffrey were marching right down the field, got this to 31 all with about 3 minutes to go, and they get all the momentum on their side here. They stop Alvin Kamara on a 4th and 1 at their own 45-yard line. They've got the ball at 1st and goal on the Saints 3 after a review of pass interference against Gardner Johnson that went their way. A couple times yesterday I saw offensive or pass interference reviewed on a play that was, they actually overturned it and called it the interference on it, surprisingly. And they've got 1st and goal on the 3, aren't able to get into the end zone, have to settle for a 28-yard field goal that Joey Sly misses, and from there you just knew that they were dead in the water. You knew that somehow, some way, Breeze was going to lead them down the field, and they seemingly marched down the field after that Michael Thomas first down conversion with about 30 seconds left. And the best way to say this is they escaped with a victory yesterday. they tried to give it away and stole it from back from the jaws of life, and remain 9-2. And it's important for them because you look at Thursday night, they're playing the Falcons on Thanksgiving. A week later, 10 days later, they get the 49ers in their building in a matchup that could decide home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs. And you look at these two teams' schedules coming up, what they've got remaining. You probably have to give the slightest of edge to the Steelers when it comes, the Saints, when it comes to the remaining schedule, because the Saints have remaining on their schedule Thursday against the Falcons, 49ers, Colts, Titans, and Panthers. And Panthers, at that point, who knows if they're still alive for a playoff spot when you consider right now that they are 3 games back of the second wild card with only 5 games left to play on the schedule. And the Vikings are sitting very pretty at the sixth playoff spot with an 8-3 record. All of these teams looking up at them with 6-5, 5-6 type records. So that game might be not matter for the Panthers, and they might kind of look at that as a U-Haul game situation, just try to protect themselves from any potential injuries heading into their offseason. Whereas the 49ers, you look at their remaining schedule, they've got a 5-game gauntlet coming up here. At the Ravens next Sunday, at the Saints the following week. They play the Falcons, followed by 2 division matchups on the final 2 weeks against the Rams and at the Seahawks, where they're still not even a lock to win their own division. We're talking about this great season they're having, 10-1, near historic level defense that they're playing, able to get by with Jimmy Garoppolo as their quarterback, and as long as he's not screwing things up, they've been winning the games. But even with all that, they're still not even a guarantee to win their own division, and we're already talking about Super Bowl when it comes to them. So now look at the NFC, and I see, as I said, 6 Super Bowl contenders there. San Francisco, Green Bay, New Orleans for sure. Dallas, although they haven't beaten the team with a winning record, and you can see Jerry Jones is getting a little bit annoyed by that with some of his comments yesterday. You, of course, got to include Minnesota in the mix there, although with Kirk Cousins, who knows? That's the only part of that team that I'm really having problems getting a full grasp on. And then, of course, there's Seattle with Russell Wilson. I know, listen, that roster isn't great. There's nothing to really brag about with that team. I mean, it seems like 1 week it's the running backs getting it done. 1 week it's Russ throwing for 300 plus through the air. But you can never count him out. You can never count Russell Wilson out. He just completed. He's going to complete his 8th season to start his career with a winning record. First quarterback in history to do that. I mean, that's an impressive feat in its own right. And he's the only reason this team has remained consistently winning over these last several years with all the players that have left them. So, you look at it, contenders in the NFC, 49ers, Saints, Packers, Seahawks, Cowboys, and Vikings. The pretenders are pretty much anyone else still in contention for a playoff spot. The Panthers, Kyle Allen has come down to earth a little bit the last couple weeks. The Eagles, you look at yesterday, Carson Wentz turned the ball over 4 times, but I mean, look who he's throwing to. It feels like the the wide receivers on this team have decided to stop playing since Deshaun Jackson went down with his injury. The Bears just barely got by the Giants yesterday, and I'll talk about them in a couple of minutes. And the Rams, I don't know what to expect out of them every other week. I mean, they seem like the NFC's version of the Houston Texans, where they got a good defense, got good weapons on the outside, but more so than with the Texans, you never know what you're getting out of that quarterback. Jared Goff, as impressive as he was last year, has regressed to just being a system quarterback. But we're going to find out these final 5 weeks. We're going to find out more. Can someone come out of nowhere, surprise me, and be that true contender rather than being a pretender and a fake Super Bowl contender? All right, I'm going to take a break there because I'm been talking now, rambling on for 30 minutes. I'm not sure if all of it made sense. Hope some of it did, and I hope it leaves some of you to hang around and last through the last 30, 40 minutes of this podcast here. As continue recapping week 12, look at the Baseball Hall of Fame list that came out, as well as with some news that came down last week, go through some of the worst contracts in recent New York sports history. So stick around, sit back, relax, and continue keeping it sports with M3.
I'll be back.
You know, our jobs occupy more than half our waking hours. Shouldn't we be doing something we love? Call Connecticut School of Broadcasting at 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to gocsb.com. Since 1964, Connecticut School of Broadcasting, with a network of 12 campuses from Massachusetts to Miami, has helped place thousands of grads as DJs, sportscasters, entertainment reporters, behind the scenes in audio and video production, every aspect of the broadcast media. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has trained men and women of all ages and backgrounds in a matter of months, not years. Learn by doing from area radio and TV pros. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to gocsb.com. Remember, it's never too late to love what you do. Day and evening classes begin soon. Get trained. Get connected now.
From New York, we back to smack talk. You do it your way. We reppin' Broadway.
What do you know? 2 weeks in a row, I got to start off a segment on the podcast with this song, and that means only one thing: the Jets actually won a game yesterday. And no, I shouldn't say the word actually, because they're now on a 3-game winning streak in which they've scored 34 points in every single one of those games. But I'm just amazed because, it's very easy to beat up on teams worse than yourself. And as I brought up last week, as downtrodden, as mad, annoyed as I was about the Jets to start this year, it can always be worse. You see it with when they played the Giants. The Giants are now in the midst of a 7-game losing streak. Or playing the Washington Redskins, who finally won a game yesterday against the Matthew Stafford-less Detroit Lions. Just someone tell Dwayne Haskins that the game's not over and stop taking selfies when he's out there on victory formation. But the Jets, surprised me by winning a game against a team that many people thought was far superior to them, that many people thought was, they're a team to be reckoned with in the postseason, a quality NFL team in the Oakland Raiders, which, color me surprised, because this was going to be a measuring stick game where you look at it and say, was the last 2 weeks a fluke, or are the Jets really playing well? And they're showing the last 2 weeks weren't a fluke. They're playing very well in not just beating, but destroying the Oakland Raiders. And I'm sure Raider fans will use all the excuses in the world, talk about how, we had to travel 3,000 miles. Our teams traveled more than anybody in the league. Some will argue saying that they were looking ahead, overlooking the Jets with the fact that they got a big game coming up at Arrowhead against the Chiefs next Sunday that could decide the AFC West. Whatever your excuse is, I don't care, because all I know is the team I root for, the team that I've loved since I was 8 years old, won a football game yesterday against a team with a winning record. They won their first conference game of the season yesterday, and took care of business on all three facets of the game. First off, once again, Sam Darnold was fantastic. Took a couple of risks along the way, especially when he ran the football in on first down, and then later when on a 3rd and 8, he's taken off running, and right before he crosses the line of scrimmage, decides to try and drop one in there to Robbie Anderson, which in probably previous weeks that might get picked off, but Darnold was on such a roll yesterday that he was able to drop that one in there and get the first down. You credit I credit Darnold's resurgence these last 3 weeks, the way he's played with the changes that they've made on the offensive line. One, going to Jonathan Harrison at center. He should have been the center all year long. They wasted $8 million on Ryan Khalil, who they used to drag out of retirement. And this is a glaring example that when a guy's already retired, unless he wants to come back, don't go out of your way to bring the guy out of retirement. When someone's already got 1 foot out the door, they're usually done to begin with. So Harrison's played well since getting back in the lineup, but also the return of Calvin Beachum. And listen, Beacham's will never be confused with a Pro Bowl or All-Pro left tackle, but what he is he's a pro. He's a guy that you can put out there, and these edge rushers aren't going to look at and just say, all right, this is an easy day at the office. He's a workman-like tight end. He gave Sam Darnold enough time to roll through his progressions. The only time that he got sacked yesterday was on a Max Crosby sack in the Jets' red zone, which was more of a coverage sack. Sam's standing back there, had 5 or 6 seconds looking around, and the Raiders, one of the few times they played good coverage yesterday, didn't have a man open, and had the one and only time he hit the dirt yesterday. But other than that, Sam remained unscathed for most of the day. And I got to give Adam Gase credit. I've knocked him all year long, but got to give him credit where credit is due. The only parts of the game that really annoyed me were with 2 minutes to go before halftime. He wasn't using his timeouts. Clock management's never been his strongest suit there. And also deferring to start the game, especially how they had 4 consecutive games of scoring a touchdown on their first drive. And it would have been a fifth time if not for the bogus offensive pass interference called against Brown, in which John Gruden finally won a challenge this year, used that and got the play overturned, leading to a Sam Fickett field goal attempt. And he missed one field goal on the day, but he was okay. The guy's not going to be the long-term field goal kicker for this team anyway. But you look at this all the way around. They got off to a great start with the catch and run down the sidelines by Le'Veon Bell, who I thought had one of his best games of the season. They were able to use guys like Berrios in the mix here, and he had a long 69-yard play to set up the first touchdown of the second half. Just all the way around, it was a good team win here over a team that many people were already crowning as saying a playoff contender. Now, follow this up. Now go and beat the Bengals on Sunday. The Bengals are 0-11 on the season. I wish they would have found a way to beat the Steelers yesterday, no matter who the Steelers had as quarterback, because I hate playing a team that's winless this late in the season. Like when they played the Dolphins, 3 weeks ago. Nobody wants to go on the list, the short list of teams that have pulled off the donut, teams that have pulled off the winless season. No one wants to join, the 2017 Cleveland Browns or the 2008 Detroit Lions. I'm sure there were some other teams along the way when it was still only a 12 or 14 game schedule, but everybody wants to at least get on the board. You don't want to be on that list of embarrassment of not winning a game over the course of the entire season. So it doesn't matter how bad the Bengals roster is. The Jets can't overlook them. They can't act like they've accomplished anything yet because they're still a 4-7 football team. I can credit the defense with the fact that they shut down Josh Jacobs yesterday. Credit them with Nate Hairston getting the tip there to set up the Burgess pick six. Jamal continuing to play at his Pro Bowl caliber level. And the fact that this defensive line is not letting them the opposition run the football at all. But as I said, they're still a 4-7 football team, and even as bad as the Bengals are, they haven't earned the right to look down their nose at anybody. And I keep hearing people talk about this whole idea of, win the next two and go into the Thursday night game against the Ravens in 2 weeks at 6-7. Calm down. Let's just calm the hell down there and take this game by game, one game at a time. Once we get to that point, then we can have some fun. But for now, as a famous man once said, we're on to Cincinnati. Now, the Jets, as I said, they've been playing reasonably well lately, winning 3 in a row. Kind of the opposite of the way things are going for the New York Giants, who it's been a dismal run for them as they've now lost 7 games in a row after yesterday's loss in Chicago. And what's interesting is each and every single week, I make predictions for the games. I post the predicted scores up on the Facebook page, facebook.com/keepingsportswithm3. And I'm looking at the scores right now. I did not edit these. I did not adjust them at all. I actually predicted the Giants were going to win this game by the score of 19-14. I thought, all right, this is going to be a low-scoring game. Giants are without 2 tight ends. Saquon Barkley's been slowed up by whether it's the injuries or just he's having a bad season. Giants' offensive line hasn't played great, and they're going up against a good pass rush. Combine that with the fact that the Bears benched Mitch Trubisky last week, no matter what they say. They benched him. It wasn't a hip injury. And look at that and say, Giants got a shot at winning this game with how bad Trubisky has played. But problem here is, A, you weren't able to contain the Bears' pass rush as much. B, Saquon Barkley had another bad game, and you're wondering what the hell's wrong with him this year. Is it really still the ankle sprain, or is there something else going on with this guy? And even though Daniel Jones wasn't awful, he still had problems holding on to the football, which is something they really have to fix going forward with this kid. I mean, you can't have him fumbling the ball every single game. Every time he gets hit from behind by one of these pass rushers, and I don't know what it is, whether the kid has too small of hands to contain the entire football or if he's just being careless, but he's got to have a better grip on the football. But the biggest problem you have in this, and this has people screaming all the time, fans of no matter what team you root for. This kid, Rosas, their field goal kicker, the awful game he had yesterday. I mean, misses one field goal in each half. I mean, the first one you can understand somewhat because there was a bad snap on it. But not only does he miss a field goal in the second half that would have drawn the Giants closer, but he has the opening kickoff of the second half, he kicks it out of bounds. I don't know what it is with these kickers. Whenever I see someone kick the kickoff out of bounds and give the opposition the football at the 40-yard line, I'm almost pulling my hair out. I'm like, why are you trying to be cute? Why are you trying to angle the kickoff? Just kick it out of the back of the end zone. I mean, it's not that hard. It's not rocket science. It's not that complicated. Just kick it out of the back of the end zone. Makes no sense to me. And that's 6 points there with the missed field goals and the opportunities you're giving to the Bears that they missed out on. I mean, you look at Trubisky tried to give that game away yesterday. He threw 2 interceptions, including one in the end zone early on. The Giants defense played well in the first half, containing the Bears to only 3 points total. And you thought maybe this is a game they could pull off a win here. But they continued the losing streak and continue what could be the end of Pat Shurmur, especially when you look at this schedule they've got remaining over the last 5 games of the season. You've got 1 game against the Redskins, but even that's not a guarantee. That's a road game, week 16. Who knows what's going to be the motivation of your team to really play hard. The other 4 games, you got the Eagles twice. You're playing the Dolphins, who we'll see if they're still in tank mode to get the first pick. I mean, you could have a tankathon between those 2 teams 3 days or a week and a half before Christmas, And you got the Packers coming up this Sunday, who are going to be motivated to play well after, for the second time in a month, getting their ass kicked in the state of California. Not a good time for the Giants. Not a good time. I never thought that this was going to be a playoff contender, just like I never thought that with the Jets. But I thought that they were a team that at least would be respectable this year. And they've been anything but respectable. They're finding new ways to lose each week. One week it's Daniel Jones and his fumbling issues. One week it's special teams. One week it's the defense getting torched and unable to put out the fire. They're just an all-around bad football team. It may end up costing Pat Shurmur his job in the end. The rumor I heard last night, I'm sure some of you heard about it, with Ian Rappaport talking about, if they let him go and the Cowboys don't re-sign Jason Garrett, to me, that would be the Giants' equivalent of the Jets signing Adam Gase. If they brought in Jason Garrett, I know he's 19 games over 500 in his career, but this guy has been a disappointment as a head coach. He may make the playoffs this year, but you think about the talent that he's had there in the what will be now 9 years as the Cowboys head coach. This would only be the 4th time he's made the playoffs over the course of the 9 years as their head coach. Remember, he was their coach during that run where each year it seemed like they were finding a new and interesting way to blow the division in Week 17 in matchups against their division rivals. 3 years in a row, they did that. And there's nothing you look at Jason Garrett and you say, oh, that's inspiring as a head coach. And the one thing he does good is clapping on the sidelines. Other than that, he doesn't seem like he knows what the hell he's doing. Like yesterday, you could see Dax having problems in the rain, and you're still having him throw the football 30-plus times when Zeke is averaging close to 5 yards per carry, having one of his best games in recent weeks. Made little to no sense to me why you're relying on your air game rather than the ground game in that bad a condition. So I don't know who the Giants would be trying to fool here by thinking going from Pat Shurmur to Jason Garrett would be an upgrade. The only way you're truly upgrading on this potential free agent market of coaches right now is if you go out there and hire McCarthy. And I don't know if McCarthy would want to be a yes man to Dave Gettleman. All right, I'm going to take another break here, come back on the other side, go through some of the worst contracts in recent New York sports history after the surprising news that came down this past week. Continue keeping it sports with M3.
I'll be back.
It's been 48 years Connecticut School of Broadcasting has helped place thousands of people, just like you, in exciting careers in radio, television, and the new media. At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, our hands-on approach is different. It's designed to have you spend less time in the classroom and more time in the studios. From the first day, you'll work with state-of-the-art equipment. Learn by doing from our team of industry professionals who come from their studios to ours. The best part about it, you'll learn it all in a matter of months, not years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has a network of 12 campuses from Massachusetts to Miami. Remember, it's never too late to love what you do. So do what I did. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO. Step into the fast-paced world of the broadcast media. Day and evening classes begin soon. Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Get trained and get connected now. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com.
Welcome back to Keeping It Sports with M3. Hope you're all enjoying the Monday afternoon. Remember, as always, check out the Facebook page for this podcast, facebook.com/Keeping It Sports with M3, where you can find the archives, previous editions of the podcast, as well as each and every week I post predictions for that upcoming week's NFL games. Usually late Thursday afternoon, I'll have those posted, as well as, if you're not watching this live right now, you can watch the replay of the podcast on YouTube. YouTube channel is pretty easy to find. Keeping It Sports with M3. Go there. You can write me comments in the comments section. Send me questions, thoughts, opinions you have of anything going on in the world of sports, as well as do that through either of my two Twitter accounts. My personal Twitter account at M3Rosansky, or the Twitter account I've set up for this podcast, where you can also find the podcast link each week at Keeping It Sports. Now, we're in the kind of dry time of the baseball off season right now. We're at a time where not much is happening because we're still 2 weeks away from the winter meetings taking place in San Diego, California. So none of the big names are going to sign or be making up their minds so quickly. I know we've seen a couple of teams make some moves so far, like the White Sox jumping out and giving Yasmani Grandal a 4-year, $73 million contract last week. And, good play by this guy, because he was given the qualifying offer a year ago, turns that down. Instead of signing a 4-year contract for $60 million with the Mets, he signs a 1-year, $18 million contract with the Brewers that was higher than the qualifying offer, and now gets 4 for 73. So he essentially wound it up with 5 for 91 over the course of these two contracts. So a good move by him. You see the Braves add a couple of relievers, including signing closer Will Smith, who was thought to be the best reliever on the market. But you're not seeing anyone really jump out there yet. I'm hoping that this isn't a snail's pace like it's been in recent years, so that it can kind of calm down some of the bad blood between the owners and the Players Association, so we can get to work on the next CBA. But you're still at a point where not much is happening action-wise. The one thing that did happen was last Wednesday was the deadline for all the teams to set their 40-man roster prior to the winter meetings. And what this means is you had to add anybody in your organization, in your minor league organization, to your 40-man roster that was Rule 5 eligible. Rule 5 is when you've been in a organization for at least, I think it's 4 years, and if you're not yet protected by the 40-man roster, then at the winter meetings they have a draft called the Rule 5 draft. If you're not protected by the 40-man roster, another team can spend, I believe it's $50,000 to purchase your rights, and they add you to their major league roster. Now, you have to be on the team for the entire following year, can't be sent down to the minor leagues or anything. And if you don't spend the entire year on the team, you're offered back to your original team for $25,000. But they do this just so that nobody tries to stockpile players in just keeping them in the minor leagues forever. So you got to protect your prospects. You see teams add as many as 6 or 7 guys to their 40-man roster, depending on how many open spots that they had, just so they don't lose those guys in the Rule 5 draft. And the Yankees did that last Wednesday in adding, I think it was 6 minor league pitchers and the outfielder Estevan Florial, who we heard a lot about. And this doesn't mean that all of these guys are going to pitch in the big leagues. I'm pretty sure that there's a good chance that not all of them will pitch for the Yankees in the big leagues. But it just means they retain their rights, and they'll probably use 1 or 2, maybe even 3 of them in trades as we go along during the off season. In order, though, to get the full room on the 40-man roster, they had to clear out a couple of spots. They DFA'd lefty reliever Nestor Cortez, ended up trading him to the Mariners today for international free agent money. And I'll tell you, the Yankees, they love themselves some international free agent money. It seems like every time they DFA a guy over the last 2 off seasons, they end up trading them for international free agent money somewhere in the package. So they were able to get something for Nestor. They DFA'd Greg Bird, who, once upon a time I had high hopes for this kid when he came up in 2015 and had 10 home runs in the final month of the season. Had that awesome spring training back in 2018 before once again getting a lower leg injury. But this guy never stays healthy. He's this generation's Nick Johnson. Nick Johnson, who was never able to stay healthy when he first came up with the Yankees. And that's the same thing with Greg Bird. Immense amount of talent. He just can't stay on the field. And that's one of the great abilities in sports to me. Availability. So, tough luck for him. I wish him well in any future endeavors, but he's out. The one that surprised me, though, and maybe this shouldn't have surprised me, is the Yankees releasing Jacoby Ellsbury, who we had all forgotten about that he even existed because he hasn't played in 2 years. But they released him because he's on the final year of his contract. The final year was not insured, and he was still owed $26 million, $21 for next year, and a $5 million buyout. So they released him to clear the 40-man roster spot, and it ends what was just an all-around awful contract. You look at it, in the course of seven seasons, a 7-year deal that he signed back on December 13th, 2013, that at the time I liked signing the player. I just didn't like the contract because I think we all knew that contract was a bad contract the moment he signed it. But you look at it, with all the time he's missed due to injury, he will have only ended up of a possible 1,134 games he could have played over this contract. He will have played, I think the number is, he will have only have played over the course of this contract 570 games. So that means he will have missed, doing the quick math, carry that. He will have missed 564 games. And during those 564 that he did play, is there really anything that you think back on finally with him? I mean, the most memorable thing he did was all the catcher interferences he had. But other than that, there's nothing that stands up. This is almost worse than them trading for Giancarlo Stanton, whereas Giancarlo Stanton is a repeat, somewhat lesser player than what they already have in Aaron Judge. Jacoby Ellsbury was a repeat player of something they already had in Brett Gardner. And he didn't do anything that was well beyond what Brett Gardner has done in his 11 years here. So it ends what was a bad contract. Hey, you don't blame the player for it. He was offered the money. It's not like he had a gun to his head saying you have to sign this. Cashman made a bad move, a rare bad move that Brian Cashman has made when it comes to a free agent signing. If I'm the Yankees, I know they're trying to file this grievance saying, oh, we don't want to pay the final $26 million of his contract because he went to unauthorized doctors. You're just looking petty here with this. I mean, just look at the Jets situation with Kelechi Osemele and how they embarrassed themselves with that. You don't want to come off as petty here and then it hurts you down the line when it comes to negotiating free agents. So just take the L on this, all right? I know that they want to get the money back because it's not insured. Just take the L on this. Don't let this, and this could be a bad look for you when it comes to signing free agents. I talked about before. There's already problems between baseball and the Players Association. We don't need another situation for the two sides to be gunslinging at each other and cause harsh feelings. Just take the L on this. Makes no sense to try and fight this. Now, what did make sense to me, and this was something I thought of last minute before going on here with today's podcast, is looking back in recent memory. And by recent memory, I'm looking at since 2000 at some of the worst contracts ever signed in New York sports. And, with the Jets, it's very easy. The last, to me, both of those contracts are in the last 4 years. You have Tremaine Johnson's 5-year, $86 million contract, which he's only going to make it through 2 years of. And he's been a total bust there. Excuse me, 5 years, $72 million. Let me correct myself there. Gave him too much on that. I mean, please, if it was that much, be losing my mind over. But thank God he's pretty much gotten all of his guaranteed money at this point. And then you look at the contract that brought back Darrelle Revis to the New York Jets, and that was a bust of a contract for them as well. He did not live up to the expectations, the Hall of Fame expectations that he had previously set, and just had a bad second run here with this team. So, and was released after 2 years. So those were the first two that really came to my mind with the Jets. With the Giants, I guess you'd have to say, the LeVar Arrington contract was pretty bad. They gave him a 3-year contract, barely got through the first year. Maybe if you want to look at right now with Janoris Jenkins and how after the first year playing like a Pro Bowler, he's been pretty much a bum for those other three. But I can't think of many with them where I was saying what the hell they were doing. Most of them come with the Yankees, Mets, Knicks, and Nets. The Nets, they had two that jumped off the page right away. Travis Outlaw, they gave him a 5-year, $35 million contract, and that was on July 8th, 2010. Remember the summer of 2010? That they fed you this false hope that the Nets were going to bring in big free agents, got shut out on all of them, and ended up wasting money on Travis Outlaw, who was actually a good player once upon a time, but not a guy that deserved $35 million over the course of 5 years. He only spent one season with the team, started 55 out of 82 games, only averaged 6.3 points a game and 4 rebounds over the course of 28 minutes a game. Was pretty pedestrian player for them that they used their amnesty clause on in December of 2011. And the other bad one, of course, is the Jason Williams contract, who, once again, he was a good player for them the first 7-8 years of his career, but he retired in year one of that deal of a 6-year, $90 million contract after breaking his leg, colliding with Stephon Marbury. And we know the rest after that, how downhill Jason Williams' career went from there. So there's not much to continue on with that. With the Knicks, I know everyone will throw out there Joakim Noah as being the worst contract in recent memory with the Knicks. But there were three that, when going through this, that were worse to me. One, Jerome James, 5 years, $30 million back in 2005. This was all after averaging 12 points, 6 rebounds in the playoffs with the Sonics. He came here and over the course of that contract never averaged more than 9 minutes off the bench in like the last 3 years of the contract. Only averaged single digits in the time he was on the court. Was an atrocious signing. But there were surprisingly two worse. One was Amari Stoudemire. Amari, good guy, good player when he came here, but we knew his knee was a ticking time bomb, the issues that he had with that. Over the course of the first 4 years of the contract, he missed 109 of 324 potential games. Eventually would get traded to the Dallas Mavericks in 2015. And, he was really never the same after the Carmelo Anthony trade. Because I remember he came here, he was playing with a bunch of young players on this team like Danilo Gallinari, Ray Felton was still on the team. You had a whole bunch of young, exciting guys on this team. And they got off to a pretty good start. You had the Garden Channing MVP at Amari every night. Then they traded away most of their depth to bring in Melo, bring in Chauncey Billups, and Amari was never really the same after that. So that was a bad one for them. But of course, the worst of them all for the Knicks, Eddie Curry. Eddie Curry, 5 years, $60 million. They acquired him in the 2001 season, re-signed him that offseason, traded them for 2 first-round picks that would later become Joakim Noah and LaMarcus Aldridge. And you look, this guy missed 188 of 410 possible games over the course of the contract. Only averaged 15 points, 5 rebounds. When he was playing, he wasn't even a starter. And was always out of shape, seemingly. This guy kind of ate his way out of the league. Just an absolute bust of a signing. Now, the Mets have some bad ones in here. Jason Bay's contract, 4 years, $66 million. Over the course of the first 3 years of the contract, he totaled 26 home runs, 124 RBIs, was released before year 4 of the deal. And this was a guy that, before coming to the Mets, hit 36 home runs for the Red Sox up in Boston, did a phenomenal job taking over in left field for Manny Ramirez. Just, for some reason, it did not work for him here. I mean, you've got other bad ones. Luis Castillo's 4-year contract was released before year 4. Oliver Perez's 3-year contract for $36 million. Over the course of 2 seasons, pitched 31 games, made 21 starts to an ERA of 6.81, an ERA around 2, and was released before the 3rd year of the contract. They always kept trying to get him to go to the minor leagues to work on stuff, and he kept refusing assignment. And then there's, a few bad ones with the Yankees I picked up over the way here. Ellsbury's was on the list, of course. Kayagawa, 5 years for around $40 million. This guy made only 13 starts for the Yankees. Wasn't even on the 40-man roster after the first 2 years of the deal. Spent the final 4 years in the minor leagues for the most part. Was just an all-around bust. And you add in the posting fee that they had to pay for him. They spent around $75 million just to get this guy here. Total waste of money. The one I really felt bad for here was Carl Pavano, and he just had bad luck. He pitched, in combined of the 4 years, pitched about the amount of starts of one full season. I think he only made about 30 starts here, but he had injuries from Tommy John to pulled obliques, got in a car accident somewhere along the way, just was, never could stay on the field, never was out there enough for them. Some would argue that Hideki Irabu was a bust of signing, but remember, they traded for him when he was with the Padres. Did have to pay the Padres the posting fee that they spent to get his contract, but he had an ERA of just over 4 over the course of 60 starts for the Yankees, so he was not awful. The worst one on here, other than maybe the Ellsbury contract, has to be A-Rod's second contract. 10 years for $310 million. I mean, you take into account twice admitting to steroid use, getting suspended for a year, had hip issues the whole time. Just after the age of 31, never really played like a superstar again. And they released him with about a year and a half left on his contract. So, those, I was going through this. There was probably a whole bunch more that I could have included on this list as far as bad contracts from the New York market. If I wanted to, could have mixed in the hockey ones as well. Kovalchuk with the Devils included into the mix here. I'm sure with the Islanders and Rangers, they had some bad ones along the way here. But now the worst of them all, when I was going through these lists, were Knicks, Mets, Yankees, and Nets. And the Knicks of them all were the absolute cream of the crop as far as the embarrassment. All right, going to take one more break here. Come back on the other side, close things up with some college football. Continue keeping it sports with M3.
I'll be back.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting founder Dick Robinson.
You know, the media business has changed a lot since we opened our doors in 1964. Now media content is everywhere, on air, online, on the go. More than ever, companies are looking for people to help drive this new media.
At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, you'll get hands-on training on the latest software and equipment in a matter of months, not years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has placed thousands of grads in broadcast media careers.
It's all about versatility. You see, at a radio station, if you also know how to shoot, edit, and post videos, you become a pretty hot commodity. That's the training you get at Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting, with locations up and down the East Coast, from Massachusetts to Miami. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Connecticut School of Broadcasting, the nation's oldest and largest group of broadcast media schools, redefining training in radio, TV, and new media. Get trained. Get connected. 1-800-TV-RADIO.
Welcome back to Keeping It Sports with M3. A couple more minutes left here. I've had a lot to talk about today. I'm not sure if all of it made sense. As I said, sometimes things that go on in this crazy mind don't all make sense. But wanted to make sure I got it all off my chest and let you all know how I felt about contenders, pretenders in the league. Jets, of course, coming off big victory yesterday, and of course that's the one home game I did not attend this year because for a myriad of reasons, all of my boys bailed out on wanting to go to this game yesterday, whether it be the bad weather, some of them having other things to do, which I can completely understand. But of course, they have their best win of the season at home in a game which I didn't attend. Go figure. But hey, still happy about the win. As I said, one game at a time. On to Cincinnati this Sunday. But before we get to Sunday, we got the final weekend of the regular season in college football coming up this week, which you got some exciting matchups coming up here in what's left of the college, as we look for who are the contenders for the college football playoff. I mean, one got knocked off this weekend. Oregon, again, their second loss, losing to Arizona State. And I don't care if they somehow rebound and win the Pac-12 championship, if they're able to get there and get by Utah. There's no way that the committee's going to put a two-loss conference champion in over, say, if Alabama's still undefeated or has one loss, or Oklahoma wins the Big 12 with one loss. There's absolutely no way. So that preseason prediction is off the boards. But a couple teams got tested over the weekend. Ohio State survived Penn State. They got Chase Young back, but they tried to give this game away in the third quarter. 3 fumbles in the quarter all led to Penn State scoring drives. Were able to get the game back under control a little bit. because as you saw, Sean Clifford left the game with an injury. Hopefully he's going to be all right. And the backup came in for him, played reasonably well until something, Ohio State, they got their mojo back there a little bit in the fourth and were able to clamp down, hold on to the ball for once in this game, hold on for victory there. Georgia didn't have much offense, but going up against Texas A&M, their defense was able to carry them, and Oklahoma survived a scare late. They were an onside kick away from blowing a game to TCU, so they keep their playoff hopes alive. And you got 5 games really you're looking at, and when it comes to affecting the playoffs this coming week. Of course, Ohio State goes and plays Michigan, and could be Jim Harbaugh's final act at home as the Wolverines head coach. Maybe wants to stick it to Ohio State. Clemson goes on the road to South Carolina, and for South Carolina, this is kind of their season here. This is I don't think they're going to a bowl game, but this is a game that they will look at and say, we can really make our year, what's been kind of cruddy year for us, by going and shocking the world and upsetting Clemson. So you always got to watch that. If you're Clemson, you can't be looking ahead to the ACC title game next week. The Iron Bowl on Saturday afternoon, Alabama versus Auburn. See if Mac Jones can lead the way for Bama into Auburn and keep their playoff hopes alive. LSU versus Texas A&M. We saw Texas A&M played against Georgia on Saturday. And then, of course, there's going to be the game that decides the Big Ten Western Division between Wisconsin and Minnesota. And if Minnesota wants any outside hope of getting into the college football playoff, they have to win this game decisively and then shock the world next week against Ohio State. But, hey, should be a fun weekend. I hope that we get some kind of upsets along the way, make this a little more interesting. Final thing I want to talk about today is last week, the Hall of Fame ballot for baseball was released for this year. You had, of course, your returning members on the ballot, such as Bonds, Clemens. We know why they're not getting in, because of their alleged steroid use. You have Larry Walker, who's in his 10th year on the ballot. And the problem with him is he gets held against him how well he did at Coors Field compared to on the road in his years with the Colorado Rockies. I mean, his numbers are very good. I just, he's the kind of guy, when I think back to the limited time I saw Larry Walker play, as good as he was, I never thought I was watching a Hall of Fame player. I never thought I was watching a guy that, to me, the Hall of Fame is the best players of all time, not, a guy who was very good and made a lot of all-star teams. So, and with how different his road and home splits are, you can't tell me that shouldn't be a factor here when it comes to deciding him for the Hall of Fame. You got a bunch of other names on here like Omar Vizquel, Jeff Kent, who I've been the leader of the parade to get this guy in the Hall of Fame. I mean, he's got nearly 400 home runs as a second baseman, 9 straight years of 100 RBIs, and he was much superior player to Craig Biggio. I don't care what anyone said. I watched these two guys for a majority of their career, and tell me I could have one of them on my team, I'm taking Jeff Kent. His numbers for second baseman were awesome, and I didn't think he was that bad of a defensive second baseman. I mean, was he Joe Morgan out there? Was he a guy that was winning multiple Gold Gloves? No, but he wasn't costing his team games all the time. He wasn't a guy that you looked at and you said he was a complete hindrance at second base. Billy Wagner's on this list, and Billy Wagner, my greatest argument with him is, I know two wrongs don't make a right, but if Trevor Hoffman's in the Hall of Fame, how is Billy Wagner not? Yeah, Trevor played 4 or 5 seasons more than Wagner did, but go look at the numbers. Wagner's got him an ERA. They've got about the same save percentage. He's got him beat out in hits per 9 innings, strikeouts per 9 innings. He was the better closer out of the two. And Wagner, it's held against him as bad postseason numbers. But, I mean, everybody's postseason numbers compared to Mariano Rivera look bad. He was a very good regular season closer. And, if you're going to put Lee Smith in, going to put Trevor Hoffman in, Billy Wagner deserves more than 16% of the vote there. And then, of course, there's Curt Schilling. Curt Schilling, who, we know why he's not in. Because he's a jerk. Because his political opinions, how he's had negative things to say toward writers, I get that. But, this guy was one of the best big game pitchers of his generation. Had a career record of 216 and 146, an ERA of 3.46. His career ERA is better than Mike Messina's, and Messina played a few years longer than Schilling did because he had durability on his side. But now you ask me which one was the better pitcher, I'm going to take Curt Schilling. As much as I appreciate what Messina did when he was with the Yankees, and if you remember, I was not the biggest Messina for the Hall of Fame fan, but Curt Schilling's numbers outside the win-loss record are just as good or better than Messina's. You look at his postseason numbers, it's not even close. Schilling was 11-2 with a 2.23 ERA. To me, he's got to get in. It's not going to be this year because he only got 60% last year. They're not going to jump in voting, in the writers voting 60% to all the way up to the necessary 75. But I would be surprised if by next year we're not talking about Curt Schilling as a Hall of Famer. Now, as far as the first-time guys on the ballot, there's only one name on here that's a Hall of Famer. There's only one name that we know is going to Cooperstown. We know that this guy's going in first time. It's only a matter of whether he's unanimous or not, and that's Derek Jeter. I mean, you could say what you want about his defense, how he didn't have the greatest range in the world, how he wasn't winning all these gold gloves, but he was the leader of 5 World Series championship teams, was as clutch a hitter as you were going to find from 1996 through about 2010. The last 4 years there, he was kind of just along for the ride, I felt like. But he was just all around great. There was nothing. You look at Jeter as a player, and you said there was nothing that was flashy, nothing that stood out. Whether it was power, whether it was fielding. He was just an all-around great baseball player that was clutch in the big moments, made the big plays when they needed to be made. And quite frankly, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's the only player voted into the Hall of Fame this year. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if you're looking at these guys that are first-time candidates, if none of them are on the ballot next year. I mean, Cliff Lee was a good pitcher for a while, but his dominance wasn't long enough, and he got hurt at the end. That kills him. Jason Giambi, we know, the steroid allegations, that hurts him. Josh Beckett, give me a break. Paul Konerko, good numbers, good player, not a Hall of Famer. Alfonso Soriano, the same way. Bobby Abreu, I've heard people try to say, I'll give him a good long look in this process. But no, you look at it, his highest ranking in the MVP award ever was 12th. He was never top 10 in MVP. doesn't have much black type next to his name. His numbers aren't even good enough to be a compiler. So, no, in the end, all of these guys, I wouldn't be surprised if they fell by the wayside on this list. But I'm waiting to see. I know there's going to be one. That does not vote for Derek Jeter. It's a matter of who you are, and I'm interested in seeing what your reasoning in doing so was. And that, my friends, was Keeping It Sports with M3 for Monday, November 25th, 2019. Once again, everyone, have a great Thanksgiving. Hell, if you're going out Wednesday night, enjoy yourself, stay safe, don't do anything stupid, and I'll talk to you all again, same time next week. Peace.
We have to go. Good night, everybody. I have had enough of you. Thank you for all the fun. Thank you. Hey, shut up, will ya?
I don't want to see you, I don't want to hear you, I don't want to smell you. Now leave. I'll be back.